right, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome everyone in attendance. The committee has under consideration the estimates of the Ministry of Justice for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2026. I'd ask that we go around the table and have members introduce themselves for the record. Minister, please introduce the officials who are joining you at the table when your turn comes. My name's Jackie Lovely. I'm the MLA for the Camrose constituency and the chair of this committee. We'll start to my right. Miles McDougall.
Oh, sorry. Miles McDougall, MLA, Calgary Fish Creek.
Chelsea Petrovic, MLA for Livingston McLeod.
Good morning, everyone. Brandon Linty, MLA for Leduc Beaumont.
Good morning, everyone. Jennifer Johnson, MLA for Lacombe Pinoka.
Good morning, everyone. Peter Singh, MLA Calgary East.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to all of you. Mickey Amory, MLA Calgary Cross, and Minister of Justice. To my left is ADM Tracy Werstiak, ADM Brad Wells. To my right, Deputy Minister Malcolm Lavoie, and ADM Liz McVeigh. I also have in attendance ADM Goddard, ADM Strauss, a number of justice officials, and ministry staff as well.
Sarah Hoffman, Edmonton Glendora.
David Shepherd, Edmonton City Centre.
Good morning, Alphonse Haber, MLA Calgary Buller-McCall.
All right, I'd like to note the following substitutions for the record. Honourable Mr. Sabir for Member Batten, Mr. Shepherd for Mr. Haji, and Ms. Hoffman for Ms. Goering as Acting Deputy Chair. Please note that the microphones are operated by Hansard staff. Committee proceedings are live streamed on the internet and broadcast on Alberta Assembly TV. The audio-visual stream and transcripts of meetings can be accessed via the Legislative Assembly website. Please set your cell phones and other devices to silent for the duration of the meeting. Honourable members, the main estimates for the Ministry of Justice shall be considered for 3 hours. Standing Order 59.01 sets out the process for consideration of the main estimates in the Legislative Policy Committees. Suborder 59.016 sets out the speaking rotation for this meeting. The speaking rotation chart is available on the committee's internal website, and hard copies have been provided to the ministry officials at the table. For each segment of the meeting, blocks of speaking time will be combined only if both the minister and the member speaking agree. If debate is exhausted prior to 3 hours, the ministry's estimates are deemed to have been considered for the time allotted in the main estimates schedule, and the committee will adjourn. Should members have questions regarding speaking times or the rotation, please email or message the committee clerk about the process. With the concurrence of the committee, I'll call a 5-minute break near the midpoint of the meeting. However, the 3-hour clock will continue to run. Does anyone oppose having a break today? All right, I see none, so we'll have a break midway through. Ministry officials who are present at the table may, at the direction of the minister, address the committee. Ministry officials seated in the gallery, if called upon, have access to the microphone in the gallery and are asked to please introduce themselves for the record prior to commenting. Pages are available to deliver notes or other material between the gallery and the table. Attendees in the gallery may not approach the table. Space permitting, Opposition Caucus staff may sit at the table to assist their members. However, members have priority to sit at the table at all times. Points of order will be dealt with as they arise, and individual speaking times will be paused. However, the block of speaking time and the overall 3-hour meeting clock will continue to run. Any written material provided in response to questions raised during the main estimates should be tabled by the minister and the Assembly for the benefit of all members. Finally, the committee should have the opportunity to hear both the questions and the answers without interruption during estimates. Debate flows through the chair at all times, including instances when speaking time is shared between a member and the minister. I'd now invite the Minister of Justice to begin with your opening remarks. Sir, you have 10 minutes.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. I'm very pleased to be here to discuss the Alberta Ministry of Justice's business plan and estimates with you. This plan was created in collaboration with several ministry officials, many of which are here with me today. The Ministry of Justice works to ensure a fair and accessible justice system for all Albertans, while ensuring that Albertans are receiving value for their tax dollars. The ministry continues to examine cost-effective ways to deliver services, while ensuring an accessible and efficient justice system. Quite simply, we must expand, modernize, and improve overall systems in Alberta's court system. As a result, Budget 2025 provides a funding increase for several justice items for a total budget of $706.9 million. This is an increase of $16.2 million over the previous year. Increased funding will allow us to add additional staff, and judiciary supports so it's easier and faster for Albertans and the legal community to access their justice system. I'm proud that through Budget 2025, our government will expand the family justice strategy, addressing increased volumes in the province's 3 courts, and defend Alberta's jurisdiction over federal overreach. Through the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service, we will establish a human trafficking unit, and we're investing in getting impaired drivers off the roads to keep Albertans safe. I'll now speak to the budgets for individual divisions. Through Budget 2025, Court and Justice Services is allocated $280.6 million to provide resolution and justice services to Albertans with legal issues and to support the operation of Alberta's 3 courts at 72 locations province-wide. This funding supports staffing increases due to Alberta's population growth and increasing case volumes, enhanced interpretation services, and upgrades to courthouse security. Ensuring our courthouses are adequately staffed will help reduce backlogs, enable the efficient operation of busy courtrooms, and avoid increasing lead times. Ensuring criminal matters proceed to trial in a timely manner. We're also investing an additional $3.2 million for the continued expansion of the family justice strategy to Grand Prairie, as well to 5 Court of Justice-based locations surrounding Edmonton: Stony Plain, St. Albert, Sherwood Park, Leduc, and Fort Saskatchewan. This initiative, initially implemented in Edmonton and Calgary, has significantly improved the court experience and outcomes for Albertans undergoing separation and divorce. As of December 31st, 2024, since its launch in Calgary and Edmonton in December 2023, over 52,000 Albertans have accessed these pre-court services through the Family Justice Strategy. Budget 2025 also includes an investment of $4 million of capital funding to help expand video conferencing capacity in courtrooms, which increases access to justice. This video conferencing expansion reduces the need for people to physically appear in court, thereby reducing the time and cost associated with escorting inmates and witness travel, increasing the number of court proceedings that can be heard, and increasing court efficiencies. We're providing a total of $6.1 million in capital investment over 2 years for courthouse security upgrades. Work will begin in key locations, including in Edmonton, Sherwood Park, Lethbridge, and Drumheller, with additional locations to follow in the next fiscal year. Moving on to the Legal Services Division. Legal Services Division is a civil legal advisor to the Government of Alberta. Its Civil Crown Counsel provides strategic legal advice to all government departments, represents the Government of Alberta in court, and supports the administration of public affairs according to the law. This includes advice on high-profile, politically sensitive, complex files in support of the government's mandate to protect our provincial jurisdiction from federal overreach. The volume and complexity of government legal work has been growing as government works to keep our laws up to date while protecting Alberta's constitutional jurisdiction. Although government can contract outside counsel, it is more cost-effective to use Civil Crown Counsel. The Legal Services Division is receiving a $5.7 million or 8% increase, which will focus on hiring additional lawyers. This will allow government to continue defending Alberta's interests in court and to introduce new or updated laws while using taxpayer dollars efficiently. The Alberta Crown Prosecution Service Budget 2025 provides for $146.7 million in total, which is an increase of $7.3 million over the previous year. Our continued investment in the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service gives our Crown prosecutors the resources to prosecute viable files, including those involving violence. Providing funding to support recruitment and retention of Crown prosecutors, including the new Human Trafficking Unit, will continue to give the ACPS the capacity to effectively manage caseloads and ensure that viable criminal cases can be prosecuted. We'll continue to make sure those who commit criminal offenses, including violent offenders, that are held accountable for their actions so that Albertans can feel safe in their communities. In our 4th division, strategy, support, and integrated initiatives, Budget 2025 addresses the workload pressures in the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner and the Alberta Chief Firearms Office. The province is investing an additional $1.9 million, or a 9% increase over Budget 2024, to hire medical and non-medical staff for the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, cover operating costs for new equipment purchases, and to support technology modernization reviews. Additional capital funding of $3.5 million to purchase 2 computerized tomography CT scanners and 4 rapid toxicology machines will make sure operations are modernized and create efficiencies to help bring quicker closure for Albertans who have lost loved ones. We are continuing efforts to provide Alberta families with timely access to information regarding the death of a loved one by building a sustainable and effectively resourced death investigation system that aligns with international practices and best practices. Strategy Support and Integrated Services is also the division that provides support for community justice initiatives, specialized courts, restorative justice, Indigenous policy and services, and the Alberta Law Libraries. We are collaborating with partners to develop alternatives to traditional judicial processes and specialized courts that provide a therapeutic and culturally relevant approach to justice. We're proud of what the Alberta Chief Firearms Office has accomplished in such a short time to promote public safety while standing up for law-abiding firearm owners since it was established in 2021. Alberta's government is increasing funding of $2 million to the Alberta Chief Firearms Office to make sure that there's enough staff to process files, so Albertans continue to receive timely service related to their applications for firearm licenses and other services. We continue to fund drug treatment courts as an alternative route for nonviolent offenders to access treatment and recovery instead of incarceration, while maintaining the threat of jail if conditions are breached. These courts help provide nonviolent addiction-related crime in communities, which in turn allows those working in the justice system to focus on serious violent crimes and repeat offenders. An additional $1.9 million and 18 FTEs will be provided to enhance services and provide strategic policy and planning within the department, particularly on mandated high-priority policy files. As of April 1st, 2025, Safe Roads Alberta, a program within the Ministry of Transportation and Economic Corridors, is being transferred to the Ministry of Justice. This transition of Safe Roads to Alberta Justice recognizes the value of closer alignment of the program with the justice system. As a result, we're creating a new division, the Administrative Law Programs, that includes programs that provide alternatives to traditional court processes, including Safe Roads, Family Support, Order Services, and the Alberta Human Rights Commission. Getting impaired drivers off of the roads is critical to keeping Albertans safe and protecting communities from the devastating consequences of driving under the influence. Under our government, Alberta has had the toughest impaired driving laws in the country since 2020, with immediate and severe consequences for impaired drivers. Budget 2025 will add an additional $1.4 million in funding for Safe Roads to help remove impaired drivers from Alberta roads. This approach to penalizing impaired drivers and handling traffic ticket disputes reduces the burden on our court and police resources while protecting the safety of people on our roads. Family Support Order Services delivers essential programs to support children and families. For example, the Maintenance Enforcement Program manages court-ordered child and spousal support payments for children and families and collects subrogated support on behalf of the Crown for recipients and families on income support. And the Alberta Human Rights Commission fosters equality and reduces discrimination by adjudicating discrimination complaints in a quasi-judicial process and by communication, education, and engagement with community organizations. The Ministry of Justice remains committed to regulatory approaches and program delivery with an emphasis on outcomes in order to improve government access to government services, attract investment, support innovation and competitiveness, and grow Alberta business. Alberta's government remains focused on keeping our province the best place in Canada to live, work, and raise a family. And with that, Madam Chair, thank you very much. Those are my remarks.
All right. Thank you, Minister. We'll now begin the question and answer portion of the meeting. For the first 60 minutes, members of the official opposition and the Minister may speak. Honourable members, you'll be able to see the timer for the speaking block both in the committee room and on Microsoft Teams. Now, members, do you prefer shared or block time? Shared. Minister?
Madam Chair, in order to have a complete and thorough conversation, I would opt for block time.
So, members, you have up to 10 minutes to ask questions and make comments to the Minister. Once you've done so, the Minister will have up to 10 minutes to respond. Please proceed.
And thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the Minister and the staff for being available here. My first set of questions relate to the ministry's business plan. And I will refer to page 113. The opening paragraph of ministry's business plan states, and I quote, "The Ministry of Justice works to ensure a fair and accessible justice system for all Albertans, where the rule of law is upheld and government undertakings are administered according to law." And related to that, through you, Madam Chair, is key objective 1.1 on page 115 that talks about government action to protect Albertans' rights. We can all agree that rule of law is the foundation and the cornerstone of a free and democratic society. And my question relates squarely to the rule of law and the key objective of protecting Albertans' interest. There's a bit of background, Madam Chair, to this question. On March 4, 2025, a journalist reported, based on documents he obtained through a FOIP request relating to the communication between the members of the UCP cabinet, including this minister, the Premier Chief of Staff, Marshall Smith, and Calgary Chief of Police, Mark Neufeld, regarding the student protest at the University of Calgary. On May 13, half hour after Public Safety Minister informed Chief Mark Neufeld that the province was ordering an investigation from the provincial police watchdog, the chief spoke with Marshall Smith, the Premier Chief of Staff, who apparently assured that the watchdog won't investigate, but will focus on whether there was serious injury resulting from police action. The notes also include notes made by the chief about a call from Minister of Justice as well. And I think I will get to the question. And question is about rule of law. While police file, I totally understand, is with public safety and emergency services, but Calgary Police is carrying out a significant and unprecedented operation against the protester, and there were attempts from Premier Office and multiple cabinet ministers. And again, question is about the rule of law, that Albertans do have a constitutional right to protest peacefully. And key objective 1 says that it's a priority for the government to protect Albertans' right. And I think Minister will agree with me that the protest at UFC was peaceful, yet 3 ministers and Premier Chief of Staff called police chief about an operational matter. So question through you, Madam Chair, is when Minister agree that minister's conduct and other minister conduct was a violation of the rule of law, and how this budget will help government ideal of upholding the rule of law and protecting Albertans' rights. That's my first question. Second question is also relates to business plan, page 113. The Ministry of Justice administers federal firearm legislation and advocates for Alberta's firearm community while working towards public safety. Madam Chair, gun violence is fairly prevalent in our communities, and it remains a huge issue. So the question I have is for the Minister to share specific initiatives that Ministry is undertaking to curb the gun violence. Again, page 113 through you, Madam Chair. It talks about legal aid, and it says that the Ministry oversees the delivery of legal aid to Albertans through an agreement with the Law Society of Alberta and Legal Aid Alberta. And it also facilitates the enforcement of child and spousal support orders, provides forensic death investigation into sudden, unexpected, or unexplained deaths in Alberta. My question relates to legal aid first. This year budget cuts legal aid by $22 million. It's a huge cut, and it impacts Albertans' rights, constitutionally protected rights to fair representation, how Minister thinks this impacts Albertan right to representation and access to justice. With respect to death investigation, through you, Madam Chair, my question to the Minister is that can the Minister share how many investigations are completed or ongoing into sudden and unexpected deaths? And are there any findings that Minister would like to share with this committee? Another question with respect to maintenance enforcement program. Just baseline question about the caseload for child and spousal support orders. Has it increased or decreased? How many staff work in both these departments? Page 113, business plan, and I quote, the Ministry of Justice is striving to provide Albertans with more timely and accessible services. The continued rollout of pre-charge assessment system will ensure charges are reviewed by a prosecutor before being laid by the police. And the system will reduce number of cases entering into the court system. So the question I have, it's pretty similar to what I asked last year as well, that how many prosecutors are working on it, what impact this program has on improving the criminal justice system, and whether there is any data or evaluation that Minister can share that demonstrates the effectiveness of this program. Relating to that is also a question about the delays in our court system. And through you, Madam Chair, I would ask the Minister to share the status of Jordan delays in our court system and how this budget 2025-26 helps to address those delays. And I'm looking for actual stats, the number of charges that has been stayed by the prosecutor due to the Jordan delays. And are these delays because of staffing caseloads? Related question, Minister also talked about viable criminal cases. It would be helpful to understand what that really means. Somebody is offside the criminal code provision. That's a crime, and victims do expect that government will take steps to prosecute that crime. So in cases where those crimes are not prosecuted in a timely fashion, the question through you, Madam Chair, for the Minister is that what impact does it have on the victims and their families, and what the Minister has to say about that. Page 116, outcome 2, justice system is fair and accessible. I note that Jordan delay is one of the key issue in terms of timelines faced in our justice system, and this outcome 2 doesn't mention or omits talking about Jordan delays. In page 116, 2A performance measure, Alberta Code of Justice lead time to trial for serious and violent matters. So that's a direct measure of Code of Justice availability to process these type of criminal cases. And in 23-24, the lead time for trial for serious and violent matters was 22.9 weeks. And target for 25-26 is set at 24 weeks. So through you, Madam Chair, the target for lead time to trial for serious matters is actually increasing to 24 weeks. So how does this align with Ministry's stated commitment to providing more timely access to justice? So I think for this block, these are all my questions. I do have 3 seconds, but I won't be able to ask anymore.
Thank you so much. Member, over to the Minister for his response.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the honourable member for the questions and the insightful commentary. When it comes to how I perceive my role, Madam Chair, it's important for me to maintain the fundamental components of what I believe is important when it comes to justice. That is, that our justice system is just, it is fair, it puts above all else equality and equity as some of the most important fundamental components of what an effective system of law is and what the appropriate rule of law means to me. And so for the member's question, that is important to me. And I know that many of us come from different places. Many of us come from environments where we don't have the benefit of the rule of law. And so to be here in a society that puts the law and order above all else is incredibly important to me. The member talked a little bit about protests. Protests are enshrined in our Constitution, and they are very important to me to make sure that the fundamental right, the constitutional right to protest is always upheld. And that is part of what I believe that an appropriate system of justice permits. And certainly I would agree with the member that people who are passionate about important events, whether they're domestically or globally, should be entitled to freely protest in a peaceful manner. The member spoke a little bit about police and ACERT investigations, but the honourable member will know that if we uphold the fundamental rules of justice and independence, that we have to allow these processes to take place without political interference. And so ACERT operates fully independently of the government and of elected officials. The police detachments all across this province and the chiefs operate fully independently of political influence. What the member didn't describe was the content of the conversations, and that is why I cannot comment on what those conversations were with respect to other members. But certainly upholding the rule of law and respecting the independence of the various agencies, whether they be within justice or whether they be in law enforcement or otherwise, is incredibly important to me. And having said that, once again, Madam Chair, I will repeat one more time that the constitutional right to protest, even if the issue is unpopular, remains one of the most important things that I will do everything in my power to uphold. The member spoke asked a question about increases in gun violence, and certainly that is a key problem that is plaguing the entire country. We've established the Alberta Chief Firearms Office in 2021 not only to process applications for gun licensing, but also to provide a collective approach to public safety through initiatives, through educational programs, and by having an office here in Alberta that can address the needs of Albertans. And in particular, we believe as a government that law-abiding gun owners should have all of the necessary resources that they need in order to acquire, purchase, sell, and use firearms in this province. Firearms are a fundamental component of the culture of Alberta, whether it be for hunting, whether it is for sport, whether it is for the use in Indigenous communities. It certainly is something that we think is incredibly important. And having a local Chief Firearms Office to provide educational programs, to provide for licensing, to provide for the processing of applications is a very important and key component of improving gun safety in our province. The ACFO's trained investigations also inspect and license firearms businesses. They attend and provide for they provide background checks on those applying for firearms. They travel to various businesses, including nightclubs and gun shops, to provide for seminars and educational programming. And they certainly they certainly see the delivery, I think, of the Canadian Firearms Safety Course within our province, Now, it's important to note that 30,000 Albertans complete the course annually. In 2024, that number jumped to 36,000 people, signaling a 20% increase in Albertans taking the first step needed towards safely acquiring a gun license. We are certainly challenged in some ways with firearms issues all across the board, and I think that this is a problem that plagues many provinces, but that is solely and exclusively due to the soft on crime policies that the federal Liberals have brought forward. We have Bill C-75, which directs courts to take the least restrictive approaches, for example, in determining bail and release conditions. We have a number of decisions that have come from the Supreme Court interpreting these laws to mean that all people who are going through the criminal justice system should be assessed on the least intrusive methods before moving on to more restrictive methods when it comes to bail. And what that means is that all across Canada, we've seen people struggle with bail reform. We've seen people call it soft on crime policies. That is the revolving door policy that we read about in the news. It simply means that the courts have been directed by law to take the least intrusive, the least obstructive methods in considering release conditions. That is a real problem that plagues our entire country. That's a problem that we've been advocating against since the very beginning. We've been asking for stronger bail reform, stronger criminal sentencing, stronger approach to crime all across, and I think that we are in good company all across the country with provinces asking for the same thing. The honourable member spoke of legal aid, and I think that it is a mischaracterization, I would say, to suggest that legal aid funding has been reduced. What has actually happened is through a legislative change, the Alberta Law Foundation's statutory contribution to legal aid will increase by a proportionate number to the number that has been decreased from our financial statements with respect to legal aid. What that means is that the Alberta Law Foundation, which is an organization that receives revenue from the income derived from the trust accounts of lawyers all across our province, will now contribute 50% of that income, that revenue, to Legal Aid Alberta. And what that has translated to is an increase that corresponds with the decrease represented in our budget. Legal Aid Alberta will absolutely receive the same funding it has always received, and it will be well supported by this government to make sure that access to justice is upheld. There are no cuts to legal aid, to the honourable member through you, Madam Chair, but what I will say is that our financial eligibility guidelines increased last year, which means that more Albertans will receive or can be eligible for legal aid, and I think that's important to note because that is underscoring our commitment to access to justice. It means that more Albertans will qualify for legal aid. We also increased the tariff amount, which is the amount that are paid to legal aid lawyers, roster lawyers who take on legal aid files. And what that has translated to is a greater interest from lawyers all across of our province, willing to provide their legal expertise in the areas that legal aid covers. That's important. When it comes to the honourable member who spoke of statistics relating to the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, as of 2024, 2,595 cases are under investigation. This is 504 more than, 504 of those are more than 9 months old, while the rest are less than 9 months old. And what that means is that the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner continues to investigate and assess these cases in order to determine the cause of death and provide additional information. The member asked about maintenance enforcement, and in that regard, we have 44,600 cases or caseload referring to the maintenance enforcement program, and we also have a commitment of $18.8 million in budget 2025 and 200 FTEs committed to the delivery of this important program for Albertans. The member asked a little bit about pre-charge assessment, and I'm incredibly proud of that program. It is a program that allows for our Crown prosecutors to provide support services and assess the viability of cases that are contemplated for charges. It has resulted in a significant number of cases that are either moved forward with much stronger evidence and better evidence, or cases that are referred back to police officers seeking additional information, for example, or asking them to shore up their claims, or with.
Thank you, Minister. Over to the official opposition to continue with their questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few follow-up questions. Minister alleged that I mischaracterized cut to legal aid funding. So I was referring to page 156, line 5.4, support for legal aid, 2024-25, it was 110 millions. 2024-25 forecast is 110 million, and this year estimate is 88,100. I don't think I was mischaracterizing it. It's a cut in the government share to legal aid. Minister may have an explanation, but it was completely not true that I was mischaracterizing this legal aid numbers. Well, we can talk more about legal aid and how this cut will be backfilled. I think historically, Alberta Law Foundation contribution from 1991, when they first started, to 2022, they averaged less than 4.2 million per year. Even at a 50% contribution rate, this would amount to less than 10 million and significantly less than 78 million it would have been at the end of 2023-2024. So the question I have is, what's the government plan to maintain the stability for legal aid funding when at a 50% contribution rate, the variance in funding from Alberta Law Foundation could exceed considerably, because the Alberta Law Foundation gets its fund on lawyers, whatever interest is generated on lawyers' trust account. So it fluctuates with interest. And it is understood that increased contribution from the Law Foundation will also decrease the amount of funding available to rest of the access to justice sector by up to 1/3. While legal aid is critical resource for our most vulnerable population, the vast majority of Albertans do not qualify for legal aid under the current financial eligibility guidelines, even after the government changed those guidelines. Instead, many who require these critical legal services and support, they rely on over 65 community-based organizations and initiatives that the Alberta Law Foundation funds. So, question through you, Madam Chair, is how does the government justify taking money from nonprofit organizations and the critical services they provide to vulnerable and underserved population to cover for its cut to legal aid as estimated in line 5.4 of this year's budget? Related question through you, Madam Chair, is the government committed to funding the nonprofit organization and programs whose stability and sustainability will be compromised as the result of this reckless cut to the legal aid? How does the government plan to mitigate the negative impact on over 65 community-based organizations and initiatives that rely on funding from the Alberta Law Foundation, especially considering the critical services they provide to vulnerable population? Another question through you, Madam Chair. Can the government provide specific examples of how it will support these nonprofit organizations to ensure they can continue to operate effectively despite the reduced funding, because government is taking more from Alberta Law Foundation or forcibly through legislation. Another question that when Law Foundation was, Madam Chair, established, hence it makes it clear that the interest earned on clients' money held in lawyer trust accounts should not go to the general revenue of the province, nor be used for legal aid. The government's proposed changes would see these monies being used for both, as is made clear in the budget line 5.4 that cuts legal aid to the tune of $22 million, and that is replaced with increased contribution from the Law Foundation. How does this government justify completely ignoring the legislative intent and purpose of Alberta Law Foundation and its funds? Another question through you, Madam Chair. What legal or ethical consideration has the government taken into account when proposing to divert these funds from their intended purposes? The proposed requirement for ministerial approval of all Alberta Law Foundation grants and funding commitments over $250,000 is also something that is in one of the bills before the legislature and minister talked about. It threatens the independence of Alberta Law Foundation and risks politicizing legal services and support to our most vulnerable population. What is the government rationale behind this change? Does this government not value upholding the independence of the Law Foundation from the government? And through you, Madam Chair, why does government think that they are in better position to approve those grants than Alberta Law Foundation? And government also louds its commitment to red tape reduction. It's difficult to perceive any other change than this proposed change that you can count as red tape. So how do these proposed changes not result in duplicate process and unnecessary rules that cost Albertans valuable time, money, and resources? To you, Madam Chair, Alberta Law Foundation has existed for over 50 years as the primary funder of access to justice initiatives in this province, supporting critical legal services and support that does not draw from and in fact saves taxpayer dollars. What is this government trying to accomplish by preventing Alberta Law Foundation from doing their job? Through you, Madam Chair, no other law foundation in Canada or across North America is subject to this level of government control. Why does this government believe that Alberta should be any different? What is the reason for implementing more government control on funding decision of a third party of an arm's length independent organization, namely Alberta Law Foundation? How does the government justify the need for ministerial approval of all Law Foundation grants and funding commitments over $250,000, given the potential for politicizing critical legal services? Through you, Madam Chair, question I have is, what measures will the government implement to ensure that the independence of Alberta Law Foundation is not compromised by these changes? In recent media reports, Minister's press staff has been quoted as saying, and I quote, "With Alberta Law Foundation's significant cash revenues, reserves, and proper management of these resources, there is minimal risk of losing funding for initiatives they support." This seems to run counter to the Foundation remarks, as the $250,000 cap prevents the Foundation from funding major projects like $26.8 million University of Calgary Family Justice Project. Does government have any plan to provide capital funding to organization in the absence of foundation? Or do these changes effectively act as a cut to the justice initiative beyond legal aid? And one last question. page 82 of fiscal plan says that government is collaborating with the Law Foundation to increase its contribution to legal aid. And through you, Madam Chair, news flash, Alberta Law Foundation is running a full-fledged campaign against this government in government decision to take their money to increase their contribution to 50%. What Minister has to say about that?
Member to the Minister for his response.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm just going to address a few of the comments made in the previous section very quickly in order to address the Jordan application issue. 27 Jordan applications were filed in Alberta in 23-24. Of those, 2 were granted by the court. This is a remarkable decrease, I would say, in respect of the Jordan applications that were granted by the court. From for example, when the NDP led the province, in which case we had double-digit Jordan applications that were granted by the court. I think that we're moving towards the right direction, and I think that is appropriate. When it comes to the question that the honourable member asked about viable cases and how we assess those, again, prosecutorial independence is tantamount. But the most important thing to keep in mind are that prosecutors assess cases on a standard of reasonable likelihood of conviction, and an individual prosecutor will independently assess the merits of a case and the evidence to determine if there is a reasonable likelihood of conviction and that it serves the public interest. I think those are the 2 components that a prosecutor contemplates with respect to deciding whether or not a case is viable. I think that's important. It's important to maintain public confidence in our criminal justice system. It's also important to respect the individuals who are going through the criminal justice system as well. Lead times to trial, the member asked about lead times to trial. We do have a 24-week lead time to trial. We know that Jordan issues are always front of mind and top of mind for prosecutors, and that's why they have a significant they have methodology in place to track those and ensure that Jordan issues do not arise. We'll talk a little bit now about legal aid. Once again, I do want to correct the record. Legal aid will receive no decrease in funding this year. They will receive $110 million. $88 million of that from our budget, $22 million from the Alberta Law Foundation's increased statutory contributions. I do want to point out that it's important for members of this committee and all of those watching that legal aid currently holds, or at least did as of last fiscal year, $70 million in deferred revenue. And so we think that legal aid, the financial status of legal aid, the financial situation of legal aid is quite strong. They have improved their delivery of services in many different ways. They are providing for additional scope of services. They are certainly able to support the lawyers, the roster lawyers, in ways that have never been seen before. The increase in the tariff that is paid to roster lawyers increased substantially in recent years, and I think that has done a tremendous job of attracting people, lawyers who are willing to become roster lawyers and work and provide the important legal services that Albertans need. In addition to the increase in tariffs, we've also increased the financial eligibility guidelines so that more Albertans can qualify for legal aid. What that means is the minimum thresholds, the eligibility thresholds have increased in order that more Albertans now qualify, which means greater access to justice, which means a better program for all Albertans. I'm tremendously proud of that, Madam Speaker, and I think that legal aid is delivering very important work in this province, and they are well supported for many years to come in the ways that we have structured our relationship. The member spoke about the Alberta Law Foundation, and I'll take some time to speak a little bit about that. As the member identified, the Alberta Law Foundation receives revenue that is derived from the interest that is made from the trust accounts of lawyers all across Alberta. Lawyers do not keep the interest derived from their trust accounts, but rather give it to the Alberta Law Foundation, which then in turn supports a multitude of important programs, not-for-profits, but organizations all across this province. And so when we started looking at the Alberta Law Foundation's commitments over the past decade or so, we learned that there are important not-for-profits and agencies that have operated in our province for many, many years, including agencies like the Calgary Legal Guidance or Student Legal Assistance or other sort of pioneering organizations in Alberta. These organizations in total from the Alberta Law Foundation received about $20 million in grants last year. And that's an important figure to keep in mind, both for the Honourable Member, Madam Chair, and for all members of the committee and those watching. In previous years, the number has been relatively consistent, meaning that the Alberta Law Foundation has provided about $20 million in grants each year for about the past 10 years. Sometimes it goes up by a little bit and sometimes it goes down by a little bit, but that's a consistent figure. In 2024, the Alberta Law Foundation collected $164 million in revenues and currently sits, or at least as of March of 2024, sits on $226 million in reserves. And so when we said, or when I said publicly that the reserves of the Alberta Law Foundation, in my view, will allow for these programs to be maintained, the programs that Alberta Law Foundation supports, to be maintained for a long time. I'm still confident of that statement. When the Alberta Law Foundation has $226 million in reserves and a commitment of about $20 million a year, we know that the sort of the financial health of that organization is very, very strong. And that's a great thing. We look at legal aid, and when I think about legal aid, I think about my mandate, and my mandate says that the objective of Alberta Justice is to make sure that we have, we improve and increase access to justice for Albertans in every way possible. And when I think about the work that legal aid does and the important role that it plays, I think that there is nothing better for us to focus on and support than providing access to justice, real access, tangible access to justice, directly in relation to legal matters before the courts, than by making sure that our legal aid program is well funded and well supported. Similarly, when we talk about the Alberta Law Foundation, we know that the agencies and organizations and not-for-profits all across this province are going to be well funded, because we know that the commitment year after year pales in comparison to both their annual revenues and to the reserve funds that they're currently sitting on. So in my view, it would be appropriate to say that there is no negative impact on legal aid. They will continue to receive the money that has been allocated year after year, and there is no negative impact on the important organizations that are receiving the money from the Alberta Law Foundation. The other thing that we took a look at when we were deciding on whether or not we needed to adjust the statutory contribution was, what are other jurisdictions doing? And we know from our jurisdictional scan that a 50% Alberta Law Foundation contribution, or the equivalent in other provinces, is consistent with what some of the other provinces are doing. And so we know that, excuse me, sorry. No, I'm okay. We know that the statutory contributions that are being paid in other provinces for the law foundations there are consistent with the legislation that is before the Assembly today, and we think that through the modeling that we've done, that it is a sustainable approach. The member asked about my position with respect to approval by government of the programs that Alberta Law Foundation funds. I will say this: accountability, respecting public funds, transparency, and making sure that we continue to be prudent stewards of public funds is an important component of this Conservative government. And making sure that we uphold our commitment to Albertans to make sure that fiscal prudence is something that we uphold, is something that is very important. The independence of the Alberta Law Foundation remains in that they operate as independent boards, an independent board that makes decisions about the individual granting program that they provide. The one thing I will note for the member very quickly is that Manitoba, Ontario, Newfoundland, and if passed in Alberta, have a 50% or more contribution for their law foundation's commitment to legal aid.
Minister, before we go to the official opposition for the rest of their questions, I wanted to check in with you to see how your voice is, if you'd prefer to have a break sooner than later, or
I'm quite okay, thank you.
you're good? Okay, perfect. All right, so perhaps what we'll do then, if everybody agrees, just have our break then at 10:30? That's kind of halfway through, okay? Please proceed, member.
And thank you, Madam Chair. Fiscal prudence, accountability, transparency, some interesting choice of words. I think whatever reserves Alberta Law Foundations have, they do not belong to government. An independent organization, how they spend their money, revenues, again, government has no business in that. And question I would ask through you, Madam Chair, is that, Minister, have you met with Alberta Law Foundation? And what feedback they provided you in this regard? And as is obvious from Alberta Law Foundation's campaign, public campaign, that they are against this decision. They are opposed to government robbing their reserves. Moving on to Jordan applications, and Minister provided some data that 2 applications were granted, but also mentioned that Alberta Crown Prosecutor Service tracked these numbers. Back in the day, we used to have numbers where government will share, courts will share how many cases are actually past that 18-month or 30-month threshold. So if Minister could share those numbers so we can see the extent of the problem, not just the application that are before the court, but actual cases that are past 18-month or 30-month threshold, because as you stated, and we do know that Alberta Crown Prosecution Service tracks that number. And it used to be publicly available before UCP decided to become more transparent and take it away. Another question with respect to performance measures 2A, and it relates to the vacancies that are there when it comes to judges at all 3 different levels of the courts. And question through you, Madam Chair, is that what is the government doing to fill those vacancies? And third question in this regard is that when was the last time Alberta government made a request to the federal government for more judges in superior courts? Another related question is that how many candidates have met the screening or eligibility to be appointed and waiting for the appointment if that number is available. And with respect to justice system, how many full-time employees are there in the justice system, and what's the vacancy rate for that? Page 113 says exactly the same what it said last year. And I quote, support for Indigenous people who are in contact with the justice system will continue with efforts by the ministry to provide culturally relevant programming and initiatives. Indigenous people continue to remain overrepresented in our justice system. Through you, Madam Chair, Minister, do you have the exact percentage of that representation or over-representation? And what specific steps this budget allows you to take to address this over-representation of Indigenous Albertans? Another thing mentioned in the documents were GLADU reports, Madam Chair. So question with respect to that is that beyond GLADU reports, are there any specific targets for reducing these numbers over the coming years? The business plan mentions supporting Indigenous people in contact with the justice system, yet there are no specific performance metrics tracking outcomes for Indigenous Albertan. What specific target this ministry has set to reduce the over-representation of Indigenous people in our justice system? And I think to you, Madam Chair, this remains historically an issue. So question I have is why not open more courtrooms like Indigenous courtroom in Calgary in all major cities and hire more Indigenous judges? Does this budget support any of those initiatives? Page 115, Outcome 1, Albertan right and interest are protected. And it talks about challenges to federal legislation and policies, how many challenges this government has made so far. And another question is that how much of taxpayer money is set aside for these challenges in this budget, and how much funds have been used so far. And Minister mentioned with respect to civil law section that they prefer not to contract out, and there is an increase of 5.7 million this year. But is there any contracting out of these challenges? Page 118, transfer from government is estimated to be 28.38 millions. Can the minister provide the exact breakdown of this transfer, what's included in it, in particular what's included for legal aid funding? Same page, other premium and fees and licenses. That's going up from 27 million last year to 32 million. What new fees and premiums are added in this budget? Expense side, legal services is going up 5.7 million. Again, can you provide the breakdown and how this will be used? Human Right Education and Multiculturalism Fund going up by 380,000. So what specific program will this fund support? A couple of follow-up questions from my very first question. Minister, you said I didn't provide the detail of conversation that I referred with respect to minister's calls to police chief. Question again was about the rule of law and minister's key objective 1.1. The details are that including yourself, 3 ministers and Premier Chief of Staff called Calgary Police. So I guess let me ask this question. Is it true that you and other minister called, and what it says about rule of law? Wouldn't you agree that such conduct by ministers and Premier Chief of Staff is a violation of rule of law? And as you stated, that you want independent processes to take place independent of government interference. If this is not government interference, what constitutes government interference? Next set of questions is about Government of Alberta's strategic plan. Objective 4, assisting Indigenous people again. within the justice system. And again, it stated the government is facilitating preparation of GLADU reports. So my question is about the time a GLADU report takes. Correct me if I am wrong. I did ask some organization and practicing lawyers, and I'm informed that for inmates in custody, it can take up to 6 to 8 weeks, and for out of custody inmates, it could take few months. So tell us how this budget ensures that these reports are made available in a more timelier fashion to help indigenous people go through this justice system more fairly and in a timely fashion. These are my questions.
Back to the minister for the final response in this first 60-minute block.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We'll start again with the questions about the Alberta Law Foundation. The honourable member referred to the Alberta Law Foundation reserves as their reserves. I disagree with that. The Alberta Law Foundation reserves and revenues do not belong to government, do not belong to the Alberta Law Foundation. They belong to the people of Alberta, and through organizations like Calgary Legal Guidance, Student Legal Assistance, the Alberta Law Libraries, Calgary Youth and Justice Strategy, and many other programs, the funding that flows from the Alberta Law Foundation supports and will continue to support many important organizations all across this province. And I think that through our conversation in the previous section, there was an assessment of the financial health of Alberta Law Foundation, and I think that they are doing well. The member asked if I had met with the Alberta Law Foundation. I have indeed met with the Alberta Law Foundation. My office has been in regular contact with the Alberta Law Foundation, and we think that there is a path to good collaboration and making sure that the program, the mandate of the Alberta Law Foundation continues to deliver on the important things that Albertans need. The member asked about Jordan thresholds, and I think that I will talk a little bit about that once again. Currently, the question was how many cases had exceeded the Jordan timelines, and I can report that out of 34,232 cases in the provincial court or the Alberta Court of Justice, 701 exceed the 18-month threshold, and out of 1,456, 1,456 in the Court of King's Bench, 271 exceed that 30-month period. However, it is important to also note that those numbers do not tell the full story, because there are many reasons why a case might exceed the 18 and 30-month thresholds. Delays that are not attributed to the Crown are often the case, and so we do not have particular concerns as to whether these numbers are exceeding the timelines that are described in Jordan. There are a number of different reasons why a case might exceed 18 months or 30 months. And the honourable member will know that there are reasons that are often attributed to an accused, for example, as to why that might be the case. So while I can appreciate that the member wants to know about how many cases exceed 18 and 30 months, without the context of knowing the particulars, those numbers do not tell us very much. It's important to note that each individual case has different factors, different reasons, a multitude of facts and details that might influence that. The member asked about judicial vacancies, and I'm happy to report that we have a very good news to report to this committee. Out of the 82 positions in the Court of King's Bench, we currently have 82 justices. And I think that's remarkable given that when I was appointed to this role, we were sitting at vacancies in the double digits. So we've been working very hard with our federal counterparts in the Ministry of Justice in the federal government to encourage and urge them to continue to appoint justices to our Court of King's Bench. And we currently have a full complement of judges, which I think is probably the first time in recent memory that we've been able to do that. The member asked about whether or not, when was the last time I had advocated for additional judges. Ever since I was honored enough to assume this role, I have been in regular contact with our Minister of Justice in Ottawa to advocate for this. In October of last year, we went to an FPT meeting, which the member will know is a federal, provincial, and territorial meeting of the justice ministers and public safety ministers across this country. And we advocated there in person, we've advocated by telephone, we've advocated by letter, and I think the results are very obvious that we are in really good shape right now. So I'm proud of that. There was a conversation that the member asked about the work that we are doing to address the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in our criminal justice system. And I do want to say that certainly the ministry and the ministry recognizes the importance of addressing Indigenous overrepresentation in our justice system. And we have done so through a number of coordinated and collaborative efforts, both with Indigenous partners, government partners, and the court itself. The court has and continues to develop an Indigenous justice strategy. The government of Alberta and Alberta Justice certainly has an Indigenous justice strategy. And all across the various ministries, we also have a strategy of collaboration to make sure that the work that we do, number one, doesn't necessarily overlap or duplicate services, but that we have sort of a continuum of services that flows through all of the government ministries that we currently have, the court, Indigenous communities and leaders, and so on. We have a number of programs that support Indigenous people in their justice system interactions. And we do that by supporting culturally appropriate programs, including the Indigenous Court Workers Program, the Gladue Report Program, and of course, again, the Indigenous Justice Program. We have Indigenous courts in Calgary and Edmonton, and a Healing to Wellness Court in St. Paul. I was proud to attend the reopening of the on-reserve court located on the Siksika Nation recently as well. And I know that that is an Indigenous-led courtroom that is doing remarkable things in various ways, a number of different ways. And I think that we have a remarkable approach to working with Indigenous communities. We support and continue to support our restorative justice models. We're promoting community involvement in the court processes. And of course, once again, we have specialized Indigenous courts in the Alexis, Nakota, Siksika, and Tsuut'ina nations. With respect to our constitutional challenges and the Legal Services Division, I certainly can report on some of that for the honorable member as well. The Legal Services Division supports a number of mandate items, both within the Ministry of Justice, but also in other ministries in helping them achieve their objectives as well. LSD is currently engaged in the work that Alberta Justice has been tasked with respect to medical assistance in dying, the Elections Act, the Public Health Emergencies Governance Review Panel, constitutional challenges, including the plastics ban or the toxic substances that we all know, the Impact Assessment Act, challenges to the consumer carbon tax, and working collaboratively with the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions and other ministries to develop and support the compassionate intervention legislation. All all constitutional challenges, but for two, are
All right.
internal.
Thank you so much, Minister. That now concludes the 60-minute segment. We'll now move to 20 minutes for the Government Caucus members and the Minister. Do you prefer blocked or shared time with the Minister?
Happy to keep it consistent.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And through you to the Minister, I appreciate you guys being here today and the hard work that you've put in to budget 2025. So I appreciate you and your staff for being here today. I know we are a little bit short on time, so I just want to jump right into it. My first question is about federal overreach, which I think is quite good today, considering that the new Prime Minister is currently in the city. Perhaps he would like to join us to talk about some of that federal overreach and learn a thing or two, but I doubt that that's going to happen. So we'll just talk specifically about this budget. On page 115 of the Justice Ministry's business plan, Outcome 1 talks about standing up for Albertans and making our province's voices heard in Ottawa. Perhaps when some of the members opposite jump ship to join the federal Liberals, and looking forward to that announcement, they'll help Carney understand that the policies and regulations from the federal government significantly impact Alberta's resource development and utilization, but I doubt it. So it remains crucial that Alberta's government continues to advocate for policies that represent the interest of Albertans and stand up against the overreach from the federal government. From the federal plastics ban to the destructive Bill C-69 legislation, we've seen Alberta's government taking steps to address the issues, while also standing up to the federal overreach. The federal court has sided with the stance taken by Alberta's government. And while Ottawa has dictated a net zero power grid by 2030, Alberta's taken a more responsible and realistic plan to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. And I'm not going to assume, but I would hope that the Minister would agree that what we need from the federal government is to come to the table in good faith and work with Alberta to align our mutual efforts, whether on emission reductions, developing our electricity grid and world-class energy sector, or on reducing plastic waste and keeping it out of landfills. So with that being said, my first question would be, would the Minister please elaborate on how Budget 2025 is protecting Alberta from federal overreach? Moving on, coming from Livingston McLeod, we are a farming, ranching, and hunting area, and I know that a majority of my constituents are law-abiding firearms holders. I know my husband and my daughter absolutely love to go out and responsibly use firearms. It's part of our way of life down south and amongst many parts of our province. And so I just want to talk about key objective 1.2 on page number 115 of the business plan. And it instructs the ministry to, quote, stand up for Albertans by taking steps to protect their interests and ensure that Alberta's constitutional jurisdiction is not infringed upon, including advocating for federal legislation that supports law-abiding firearm owners and advancing legal challenges to federal legislation and decisions that infringe upon Alberta's constitutional jurisdiction. Alberta publicly opposed federal Bill C-21 and its sweeping changes since it was first introduced. I know the Alberta Chief Firearms continues to stand up for Alberta's law-abiding hunters, sport shooters, and firearm business owners, and that it's a priority for this government to continue advocating for Alberta's law-abiding firearms communities and business. Law-abiding firearms owners and businesses should not be punished for the actions of criminals. It's my hope and expectation that Alberta will continue to seek to protect these stakeholders from all federal overreach and decision-making that is not based on evidence. I know that lawful gun owners, who are my constituents, often say that they feel like they're being unnecessarily targeted, and I would agree with them. Thankfully, the Alberta Bill of Rights adds new rights for Albertans, including a reinforced commitment to standing up for lawful firearms owners here in Alberta, and affirming government's intent that provincial laws should not interfere with the right to own legally acquired firearms. Through you, Madam Chair, can the minister explain to this committee how Alberta's government is standing up for Alberta's lawful firearms community while ensuring there's no risk to public safety in 2025-2026? And two, through you, Chair, per initiative highlighted on page number 115 of the business plan, I see an investment of $8.6 million to support the Alberta Chief Firearms Office. How will this support aid Alberta's Chief Firearms Office in delivering on its mandated items, including for engagement and advocacy and research in 2025-2026? And with that, Madam Chair, I'd like to cede my time over to Member McDougall.
Thank you. And also just a comment, thank you very much for the minister to coming here and providing information. Through the chair, through the minister, I want to talk a little bit about our digital services investments. So Albertans, as we all can all agree, deserve a fair and accessible justice system, and investing in digital services is crucial to making sure that all Albertans can have access to the legal services that they need. Key Objective 2.2 on page number 116 of the business plan deals with the advancement of digital transformation and streamlining processes to improve access to justice, with a renewed focus on delivering the most effective and efficient way for Albertans to access court services. We know that digital options play a crucial role in making the justice system more accessible for individuals who live in real communities and for vulnerable people who are testifying in court. Digital options also significantly enhance the efficiency of court services by reducing paperwork and streamlining processes like electronic forms and minimizing the need for physical documents, reducing administrative burdens, and likely lowering the costs for both courts and litigants. And of course, this has a very direct implication for, or certainly potentially for red tape reduction. And so, there's lots of opportunity there that I think a lot has been done, but there's certainly, I think, a lot more that can be done. Automated scheduling and case tracking systems also help manage workloads more effectively, ensuring that cases progress smoothly through the system. These digital advancements ultimately can help courts operate more efficiently and provide faster resolution to legal matters. And even extending this a little bit, we can, the issue of AI, and there's a lot of talk. It's actually one of the main areas that in terms of the implications in the future for the law profession generally, and I would say for the legal system generally, is what AI can be doing to the processes and procedures that existed within the whole legal structure and as a system. And it could be, certainly many people believe, major fundamental changes. But in terms of a question, and I don't know if the minister would want to talk about what the implications in AI, but for to start off, can the minister please elaborate on what will be achieved with the Justice Digital Project through budget 2025? And on page 116 of the business plan, under outcome 2, it highlights the work the ministry is doing to increase availability of online services, and key objective 2.2 speaks to the advancement of digital transformation to improve Albertans' access to justice. So can the minister inform this committee more specifically which initiatives fall under this objective? And then moving on to page 150 of the fiscal plan, I see under Schedule 13 an $18 million investment for justice. Can the minister tell this committee specifically what falls under these initiatives and if these relate to Justice Digital and Justice Transformation initiatives? So I have a minute left here on this block, so I'll just commend the minister for the important work that's being done into advanced justice and technology policies across Alberta's courtrooms. I'd like to highlight another key aspect of the Justice Digital as outlined on page number 116 of the business plan. Under initiatives supporting key objectives section, it includes a $12 million investment to enhance online services, digital platforms, and video conferencing. And a strong digital platform is crucial for ensuring access to justice, particularly for individuals in remote areas, those with disabilities, or those facing financial barriers. This investment is great news for my constituents who will benefit from the flexibility that remote hearings can provide, but obviously much even more so for people in rural Alberta, I would think. But again, it's not just about rural Alberta, it's about convenience for everyone. So beyond convenience,
Thank you, member. That's your time. May I just pause and compliment the clerk on the new time settings he's added in the speaker time? I just think it's so much easier to follow. So thank you. Well done. Minister, to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to both of the honorable members for their questions. I'll begin by talking a little bit about our position as it relates to federal overreach, what the government of Alberta is doing, and speak a little bit about where we're at there, because I think that's important. Budget 2025 made an increase, or includes an increase to the Legal Services Division of $5.7 million. And the intention is to provide a budget increase so that we can provide additional supports to the work that Legal Services is doing on behalf of Albertans. We know that there has been a number of constitutional challenges, a number of important legal challenges that we have been dealing with over the past few years, but we've had tremendous successes as well, and I think it's important to highlight, or take this opportunity to highlight, the incredible work that Legal Services has been doing, not only for the Ministry of Justice, but for all ministries and all Albertans. The Legal Services Division supports the government's commitment to, of course, stand up for Albertans by protecting their constitutional jurisdiction. We know that there are a number of legal and constitutional challenges that are happening where we are challenging federal intrusion into provincial jurisdiction. Some of those we've talked about, like the the plastics ban or the toxic substances ban. We've had recent challenges to the Emergencies Act, which we were successful in as well. Certainly we have ongoing challenges in relation to the firearms ban, which will sort of take us into your next question. We've got the Impact Assessment Act that we've been dealing with, and I think it's important to talk just a moment about that, because I just want to highlight for all members of the committee how important some of this work is. The Supreme Court of Canada held recently that the components as they relate to our challenge in relation to the Impact Assessment Act were deemed to be largely unconstitutional. The impact, I read a statistic just yesterday, that the impact of the canceled contracts that we're able to quantify has reached $176 billion. That is $176 billion in lost contracts, in lost jobs, in lost opportunities, and in lost investment. And that is, in our view, not only harmful to Alberta, but also to the entire country. And so when we come forward with these challenges, we think it's important to take a position, defend that position, and do it for the benefit of not only Alberta, but the rest of Canada as well. These are countless companies, countless opportunities that have been lost because of the federal government's decision to create obstacles and barriers which make it impossible for investment in this country to flourish. And what actually happens is they simply go south of the border or otherwise. We want to attract them here, preferably to Alberta, but anywhere in Canada would be just fine. And things like the Impact Assessment Act do all Canadians an injustice, in my view. And so that is why I'll continue to support the work that Legal Services does for us as a ministry, and does for the government of Alberta and all Albertans fully. I want to talk a little bit about your comments with respect to our Chief Firearms Office. As I mentioned earlier, the Alberta Chief Firearms Office was opened in September of 2021, not only to process the PAL and RPAL applications that we were receiving or help do that, but also to provide public awareness, public education, public safety. And we're incredibly lucky and fortunate to have our Chief Firearms Officer, Dr. Terry Bryant, who is a well-respected expert all across Canada, leading this office. I know that the ACFO continues to process applications. It has been working on comprehensive reviews of the proposed firearms confiscation program. And we know that we're in good hands when it comes to making sure that Albertans are well represented, because we have both Dr. Terry Bryant and the Alberta Chief Firearms Office doing wonderful work in that regard. I want to talk a little bit about Bill C-21, which you had referenced in your comments, and that is in relation to the bill that creates significant impediments to lawful, law-abiding gun owners. The important thing to note here is that Alberta has and will continue to take the position that we wholly oppose Bill C-21 and its sweeping changes, which I think are misguided. And we've done so since 2021 when it was first introduced. We're always weighing our best options and looking at the positions that we need to take to help make sure that we stand up for all of Alberta's law-abiding hunters, sport shooters, and firearms business owners. So I want all members of the committee to know that Alberta Justice will be doing everything it can to challenge that. I also want to talk a little bit about why I think it's misguided. I think that's important. We know that law-abiding gun owners are not the ones committing the serious and violent crimes. Law-abiding gun owners who take the steps to obtain a license are not the ones committing the crimes. And similarly, the ones committing the crimes are not the ones that are taking the time to go and get their licenses. And so we think that it's misguided and it targets the wrong people. And we'll continue to advocate for that as much as possible and as far as we can. I want to address, Madam Chair, the comments of MLA McDougall as well. And I know that the questions focused a lot around our Justice Digital program, which is one of the most comprehensive and technologically advanced moves forward of our court system in history. The intention here on a high level is really to make sure that Albertans can access their courts in many different ways, including electronically or virtually. And we've made some remarkable steps forward when it comes to doing that and implementing that. We've got the ability now for Albertans to submit their filings online. We have the ability for Albertans to manage their traffic tickets virtually. We have the ability for them to make adjournment requests or appear in dockets, again, online. And what this really has done and what it's achieved is that we've been able to cut the time that Albertans need to take out of their busy lives to come to court and deal with things like traffic tickets or other important matters. We have a digital surrogate system that I think is the envy of the country. It is working remarkably well to allow people to deal with their loved ones' estates virtually as well or electronically. And we know that this is just, we're just getting started. We've got so much more to do and so much more to go. But we've also been able to create an environment where most of our courtrooms have the ability for Albertans to log in online or virtually and conduct their business from their cell phone or their computer from home. And I think that's an important component or one more piece of the puzzle when it comes to highlighting my mandate letter, which is really to improve access to justice. I want to talk very briefly in the time that I have left about the members' comments with respect to artificial intelligence. We know that there are implications that we will deal with today and that we're going to deal with in the future. Some of those are good and some of those are not so good. I want to talk about where Alberta Justice is turning its mind to right now. we know that the development and the continued improvement of things like deepfakes is something that we're going to have to tackle in the very near future. These are computer-generated images, artificial AI-generated images or videos that appear to be real, and we know that in many instances they can be used for positive purposes, but in other instances there could be nefarious or negative uses of these. So Alberta Justice is turning its mind to AI, both in how we can implement it within our courts to improve and streamline processes, but also in ways to try and protect Albertans from some of the potentially negative consequences of the development of AI. We'll continue to develop that with our Minister of Technology and Innovation, and we look forward to bringing.
Thank you, Minister. We'll take our 5-minute break now. we're back. That concludes the government members' first block of questions. Now we move to the second round of questions and responses. The speaking rotation going forward will be the same as in the first round, starting with the official opposition, followed by an independent member, then members of the government caucus. However, the speaking times are now reduced to 5 minutes for the duration of the meeting. We'll begin the rotation with a member of the official opposition who will have up to 5 minutes for questions and comments, followed by a response from the minister who may speak for up to 5 minutes. After both individuals have had the opportunity to speak once, we'll then move on to the next caucus in rotation. If the member and the minister agree to share time, we'll proceed with a 10-minute segment, during which neither the member nor the minister may speak for more than 5 minutes at a time. Members are reminded that they may not cede their time. So I'll just review that quickly here. Members are reminded that they may not cede any of their unused portion of their 5 minutes to another member. Member and minister, do you wish to share or combine your time? Sorry, block to share.
It is my preference to remain consistent with what we've
Block?
been doing.
Okay, very good. Please proceed.
Thank you. 2025-28 Government of Alberta Strategic Plan, page 23, talks about investing $3.2 million in Family Justice Strategy, Family Justice Hub, and also talks about parenting intervention programs. So question I have is, how many individuals have accessed the Family Resolution Hub since its launch, and how many individuals will be supported through this budget? How are mediators being hired, and how many mediation have been conducted? Will this budget help hire more mediators and support more mediation? Next question is about what are the parenting intervention program, where they have been implemented, how many parents have accessed or will be able to access this program through budget 2025 and 6. What percentage of family law matters are currently being diverted from the court through this program, and what target has been set for the upcoming fiscal year? I will move to justice estimates now. It talks about capital investments of $17.5 million. And through you, Madam Chair, earlier this month at a government press conference, Minister of Justice was present, and Premier said that she was directing her government agencies, school board, crown corporations, everyone to purchase their goods and services from Alberta companies, Canadian companies, or countries where free trade is being respected and honored. So I have reviewed the sole source contracts with the Department of Justice on the government disclosure website. There are 3 American companies who have sole source contract for the services in this budget and beyond. Precisely Software Incorporated, Massachusetts. United States contracts ends in 2029. Over $170,000 with Infax, Georgia, ends in 2029. 3 different contracts of over $320,000. Freshworks Inc., California, ends fall 2027. That's over $110,000. So question I have is, Minister was standing with Premier when she made that announcement. So what has been done to ensure that Premier direction, government direction is followed to procure from Canadian companies? And will the Minister commit to cancel all these sole source contracts with companies outside of Canada, in particular in United States? All this announcement was just performative. So that's the question with respect to the procurement. And then on page 156, Justice estimates, the 1.1, line 1.1, Minister Office budget is going up against this year slightly, but it's still an increase. So what will it be used for? How many full-time employees are there? And same thing with Deputy Minister Office. It's going up again. It's more than Minister's budget. So what this increase will be used for? There was an increase in last year budget too. How many employees are there in Deputy Minister's Office? Legal services budget is going up significantly, almost $3 million increase. And there was an increase in last year too. So can you please provide the detailed breakdown of this line item? Court and Justice Services, that also includes dispute resolution, information and education services. Budget is going up from 54 to 59. What exactly this budget will be used for, what portion of this budget will go to dispute resolution, information and education services. And line 2.2, there is also a change, an increase from 147 to 153 million. What's increased? What's the reason for this increase, and what's included in it now? Question I do have about maintenance, enforcement, and child support caseloads, which you already touched on, but I can ask them in the next block.
Thank you, member. Over to the minister now.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you again to the honorable member for the questions. The Family Justice Strategy is something that we launched in December of 2023 in order to provide support services to families going through separation and divorce matters. And the idea was that when families are dealing with this these stressful events in their lives, that there would be services available to allow for families to seek alternatives to court, more informal processes, and having the ability to go into sort of the wraparound or support services that we've been able to make available to Albertans all across this province was very important to me, because I think that if we can settle some of these issues without having Albertans go to court, families are better served in that regard. So the question about the $3.2 million increase was that we made that increase in order to support delivery of that service to a number of different locations. And for the members' benefit, the $3.2 million will, the $3.2 million increase will mean $11.2 million for Family Justice Services, or the Family Justice Strategy, to Grand Prairie, as well as some of the areas we talked about earlier, Calgary, Edmonton, Red Deer, and 5 court-based locations in and around Edmonton, Stony Plain, St. Albert, Sherwood Park, Leduc, and Fort Saskatchewan. We know that investing in the Family Justice Strategy will make it easier for families who are navigating through this challenging program. We also know that it will make things a lot less difficult and stressful for children. And I think that on those merits alone, the Family Justice Strategy has far exceeded our expectations. But let me give the honourable member some statistics as well, Madam Chair, through you. We have invested, again, a total of $11.2 million to expand this program to a number of different regions in our province. But we also know that these services are available to Albertans all across the province through virtual methods. Since December 31st of 2024, 52,000, or as of, I should say, December 31st, 52,000 Albertans have accessed these services. 30,000 people have visited the Alberta Family Resolution Hub. The new family court applications in both the Court of King's Bench and the Court of Justice have decreased by 40% in 2024 as compared to 2023. And self-represented litigants, if they identify their matter as urgent or time-sensitive, are generally seen in the same day by a family court counselor. We think that these are remarkable statistics, Madam Chair, and this program has has far exceeded what we thought that we would be able to achieve. And we're getting started, and we plan to make make this even more accessible to people all across Alberta. I'll speak briefly about the capital investment question in relation to contracts and sole source contracts, as the honourable member mentioned. We do have some existing and ongoing contracts with U.S. suppliers, but we certainly have made the commitment to take the Canada First approach, just like every other ministry, just like every other government across Canada. And we will continue to explore options to make sure that the transition to a Canadian-based company ensures that we move to a provider, a local provider, while maintaining a interruption-free transition. And so justice officials, just like everyone else in the government of Alberta and governments all across the country, are taking this Canada First approach, and we're no different. We are going to explore all of the available options and make sure that we do look for Canadian alternatives, but we will not allow the integrity of our court system or the disruption of services with respect to the overall justice system to be interrupted as we transition to a Canada First solution. When it comes to court and justice services, the honourable member did identify a large increase in that, and that is largely due to our growing province and growing demands. Budget 2025 invests an additional $8.3 million for ongoing support at our three courts, the Court of Justice, the Court of King's Bench, and the Court of Appeal.
All right, I believe now we're heading over to the government side. Please proceed, Member Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you also through you to the Minister and to your team for all the hard work you've done preparing for Budget 2025 and for taking all of the questions today. My question is on a rather somber subject of the Safe Roads program. The Safe Roads program in Alberta has been a significant success in enhancing road safety and reducing the presence of alcohol-impaired drivers. Since its implementation, the program has focused on providing immediate penalties for impaired driving offences, streamlining enforcement processes, and reducing the burden on the court system. I know, Madam Chair, that my constituents can rest easier knowing Alberta's government is ensuring that those who drive under the influence face swift consequences. I also will rest easier knowing this, as this has affected my family personally. It was over 3 decades ago, Madam Chair, that my husband's sister, along with a young couple who had left their 2-year-old behind, and another senior lady, were driving on a Sunday afternoon to a local town. And it was a clear day on a straight road, and an 18-year-old who had been drinking too much and wasn't watching hit them head on, killing all of them instantly. The young couples, the wife was pregnant with their second child. They orphaned their only daughter. And so this affects my family personally. This affects millions of people personally. And I take it really seriously. So I thank, first of all, the Minister for taking this on and for taking this so seriously, protecting Albertans and protecting families. Key objective 2.3 of outcome 2 on page number 115 of the business plan mentions that Budget 2025 will ensure Albertans have access to a fair and efficient adjudication process to challenge administrative penalties related to alcohol or drug-related driving contraventions under the Traffic Safety Act. By introducing roadside sanctions, law enforcement officers can impose swift consequences, including license suspensions and vehicle seizures, which act as strong deterrents against impaired driving. My personal hope is that these measures have contributed to a decline in impairment-related collisions, making Alberta's roads safer for all road users. And may I also say that we love all of our nonprofits and all of our volunteers who are helping in these areas, but I am sure that Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, MAD, would love to be put out of business. So my first question is, can the Minister elaborate on the $7.5 million investment for the Safe Roads program and how this initiative will help protect Albertans from alcohol-related driving matters? Second, why is the Safe Roads program shifting from the Ministry of Transportation and Economic Corridors to the Ministry of Justice? And my final question on this subject is, can the Minister explain why the new division of Administrative Law Programs was created? My second question in this final minute has to do with drug treatment courts, if we have time to get there. And it has to do with, I was at a Rural Crime Watch meeting about a year ago, and a young man who had gone through this program gave his personal story, and it really profoundly affected my life, and that this is really working. Alberta's drug treatment courts are recognized as successful alternatives to traditional court processes for individuals struggling with substance abuse issues. Outcome 3 on page number 117 of the business plan talks about how the ministry continues to support and grow targeted programs like drug treatment courts that provide these wraparound supports while holding offenders accountable. These courts provide a structured, rehabilitative approach that integrates judicial oversight with treatment services, offering participants access to counseling, addiction treatment, and support programs. As I understand, by focusing on the rehabilitation instead of incarceration, drug treatment courts help break the cycle of addiction and crime. They reduce recidivism rates and promote long-term recovery. I'll jump straight to my questions. Would the minister explain how much funding is being directed towards drug treatment courts and other specialized courts in Budget 2025? And my final question, what type of supports are available through the drug treatment courts for the families of offenders during these challenging times?
Minister?
Thank you very much, Chair. And just let me begin through you, Madam Chair, by expressing my sincerest condolences about that, your personal story. Thank you for sharing that. I know that many of us have similar stories, and I too agree with the member's notion that if we could put MAD Canada out of business, that we would all be winners, and certainly I think that that's the ultimate goal. The Safe Roads program is an important program in this province. I know that Mothers Against Drunk Driving and other advocates for the prevention of impaired driving have certainly supported the Safe Roads program, and we continue to support it in many ways, including the funding and bringing it over to justice. I'll begin by talking a little bit about some of the questions relating to why justice. Well, I think that first off, it highlights the relationship between enforcing the law and making sure that impaired drivers are not on our roads. And I think that there is a direct relationship between Alberta Justice and making sure that this ministry is leading the effort to prevent impaired driving in our province. The other thing that's important to note is there are many benefits of the Safe Roads program. They include the strongest penalties in the country, and people who are stopped and who are driving impaired will suffer immediate consequences as a result of that at the roadside, which I think is important. That includes vehicle seizures, that includes license suspensions, and of course a number of different things that individuals will have to do to deal with the consequences of having their licenses suspended. The Safe Roads program does also include, in order to maintain and ensure procedural fairness, an adjudication process that is quick and allows individuals who don't believe or who want to challenge the decision to be able to obtain a decision in a very short period of time. What was happening in the criminal justice system was that these impaired driving charges were taking a significant amount of resources, both of the individuals charged and of our Crown prosecutors, our courts, but having the timely adjudication of those who have been alleged to have been impaired through an adjudication branch, I think is an important thing for all people involved. The ability to free up court time, the ability to dedicate Crown prosecutors on other areas, and the quick consequences, I think, are all reasons why the Safe Roads program is working here in Alberta and that it is here to stay. I can tell you that 84% in the period of April 1st, 2022 to March 31st of 2023, 84% of criminal impaired driving charges were diverted to Safe Roads. A total of 1,453 criminal impaired driving charges were commenced in court, in comparison with 9,016 penalties under the Safe Roads program. So you can see a significant shift, which also frees up our police officers, because administering the consequences at the roadside in the Safe Roads program is remarkably quicker than the process with respect to a criminal impaired driving charge. We the member spoke about a number of issues, a number of important issues in relation to Safe Roads. We're investing the money because we think it works. The $7.5 million investment to Safe Roads is doing great things to ensuring that members of our community remain safe, and that impaired drivers are off our roads and not causing the problems that you so very emotionally spoke about, and I'm certainly proud to speak about that. The drug treatment courts are an important component here in Alberta, and we've seen some great successes there as well. We know that $4 million in budget 2025 will continue to flow to provide the good work in our drug treatment courts, and we've seen the statistics. The statistics suggest that those who successfully complete the program in the drug treatment courts, many of which who have multiple prior offenses, prior convictions, are not returning back to court, and I think that's great news.
All right, thank you, Minister. To the Official Opposition, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question relates to line 3.1. Civil law, there is an increase from 61 to $67 million. So the question I have is government involved in more cases? And what's the cost and process for the outsourcing of civil law services? Next question relates to line 4.1, operation and bail prosecutions. And budget is flat in this line. And I note that there are many issues with respect to individual and custody and bail process, some of which Minister outlined. But all political rhetoric aside, the law as it stands now is that Albertans have the right to be brought before Justice of Peace or a judge for bail within 24 hours. But there are huge delays, and accused are getting a runaround. Failure to meet this requirement can be considered a breach of Charter of Rights and Freedom and could negatively impact any future prosecution against the accused. I have looked at it for a while now, and practically, when a person is arrested, matter gets adjourned from the JP to Alberta Court of Justice into the docket court. Crown's policy generally is to schedule a bail hearing because they won't do bail hearings in docket court due to the number of matters in the court and the lengthy list in the docket. And the inmate then has to schedule a bail hearing. The available hearing date is often weeks down the road, and the inmate's consent is required at show cause to adjourn past 3 days. Practically, the inmate doesn't have a choice and has to adjourn as per the dates available, and as such, the bail is not timely. This is due to the lack of availability of Crown, courtrooms, and availability of judges. So basically, lack of resources. The actual bail courts are often double booked. Permission is required from the chief or assistant judge to overbook. This happens in Calgary on a regular basis due to lack of the availability of court and judges. Again, a simple solution other than accusing federal government non-stop is to fund the justice system adequately. So, question I have is what step Minister has taken to ensure the rule of law is upheld, because Albertans deserve to be treated according to the law as it stands, which requires that accused be brought before a judge in 24 hours, and that shouldn't be just lip service, but that should be a meaningful opportunity for the accused to make their case before a judge or justice of peace. And second related question is, also I understand that Alberta Crown Prosecution Services performs monthly bail result analysis. So question through you, Madam Chair, is that tell us how many bails have been processed within the timeline set by the legislation. There are many inmates that have not brought before the Justice of Peace for bail hearing within 24 hours. And through you, Madam Chair, what I'm looking for is the exact number of those inmates, and what is the ministry doing to address these delays in budget 25-26, since there is no increase in Alberta Crown Prosecution Service budget. With respect to line item 4.2, appeals in specialized prosecutions, I think, is there an increase in caseload? There is increase in the budget. Also, the department continues to lose serious criminal cases due to Jordan delays, yet this budget shows no coherent strategy to address this crisis. Can the minister explain why, after years of promising to fix the problem, government is refusing to properly fund the justice system, prosecution services, and all the players in the justice system?
Thank you so much, Member. Over to the Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and once again, thank you to the member for the questions. I'll begin by speaking a little bit about the increases to our Legal Services Division, which once again is our civil Crown Division. They are responsible for not only representing the Ministry of Justice, but also for representing all ministries in legal challenges, legal advice, and other areas. We do have a number of LSD lawyers which are internal to the department, and they work day in and day out representing the province's interests in a variety of different ways. Certainly, Madam Chair, as the honourable member alluded to, with the increase in complexity of the cases, with the increasing challenges that we face as a province, and with the growth that we're experiencing, we certainly do have a heightened need for additional supports, and that is exactly why the Legal Services Division is receiving an increase in their budget. That increase will support the hiring of additional lawyers and the hiring of additional support staff. The important thing to note is that an internal Legal Services Division lawyer is much more cost effective for government than outside counsel would be. And so the numbers that we use, or the money that is allocated to hiring Legal Services Division lawyers, is a fiscally responsible thing to do. Now, with that said, I think the member I might presuppose he might ask about the retention of external counsel. Madam Chair, we certainly do use external counsel when it's appropriate, and there are external counsel retainers that are granted to assist Alberta Justice where an area is unique, where legal counsel, for example, outside of Alberta is required, where there's a conflict of interest potentially, or where the urgency and resourcing requirements for a particular matter can only be handled by external counsel. Of course, when that happens, all efforts are made to negotiate the best rate possible, and we certainly have a preference to use our internal lawyers wherever possible. Sometimes that isn't realistic, but when it isn't, we certainly approach it in the best and most fiscally prudent manner. The member spoke about, well, in great detail, I would say, about the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service. And what I would say is that, again, the ACPS has once again received a substantial increase in their budget. And I'll break it down for the member. $2.5 million will address salary pressures for prosecutors. And 1.1 million will be devoted to 12 additional FTEs, specifically to legal assistants and paralegals. 800,000 for 4 FTEs to establish a human trafficking unit, and $500,000 for retention bonuses so that we can help recruit and retain lawyers to work for the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service in areas where it is difficult to staff, sometimes in remote areas where we need Crown prosecutors, and we've developed this retention bonus to help attract good talent. $2.4 million for general increases to collective bargaining outcomes as well. That is the budget. The members spoke in great detail about people who don't appear before JPs within 24 hours. I would say that that is largely anecdotal, Madam Chair. The vast majority of people appear before JPs within 24 hours as is required. Whether or not they choose to have their bail hearings heard by a judge or another way is certainly their prerogative, but we certainly maintain and uphold our obligations to making sure that the Crown prosecutors, the accused, see somebody within that time period. There was a question about what steps we're taking to ensure that people appear before a judge in a timely manner. Certainly, I would direct the member to, largely the budget, which saw increases all across the board, but Court and Justice Services alone saw a budget increase of $12.7 million. We've also seen the highest number of FTEs in justice.
Thank you, Minister. Over to Member Singh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Minister, thank you for coming here today. And I appreciate the Ministry's work ensuring the availability of a fair and accessible justice system for all Albertans, where the rule of law is upheld and government undertakings are administered according to law. And through you, Madam Chair, my questions are on justice system funding. And I know a priority of this government is ensuring all Albertans can access a fair, accessible, and transparent justice system. And page number 146 of the fiscal plan, Schedule 5, regarding operating expenses, indicate a 13 million funding increase for the Ministry of Justice, taking the budget to 700 million. Funding the justice system adequately is crucial for ensuring efficiency in our courts, surely require sufficient financial resources to function effectively. Underfunded courts lead to case backlogs, delaying justice for victims of crime and prosecuting violent offenders. Proper financial support for the justice system is also essential for rehabilitating offenders. Efficiency in our justice system also means that resources are used effectively, ensuring the taxpayer money supports fair trials, proper investigation, and rehabilitation programs rather than being wasted on administrative bottlenecks. Where justice is delayed, people lose faith in the system, but a streamlined, well-funded justice system ensures fairness, protects rights, and fosters a safer, more orderly society. And through you, Madam Chair, would the Minister please tell this committee about what those funds will be used for and how will they support Albertans? And also, I see on the page number 154 of the fiscal plan, Schedule 22 indicates that FTEs are increasing in the ministry with 104 new additions for the total of 75 FTEs. And can the Minister please explain why this increase to full-time equivalents is necessary and what they will be doing in 2025, 2026, and through you, Chair, increasing court capacity Ensuring legal matters are resolved quickly is crucial for improving access to justice for Albertans. When cases take too long, it can cause stress, financial burdens for individuals and families who are already going through a difficult time. And I see on page number 118 for the business plan, and I see an increasing of about 16 million increased court and justice services expenses. Investing in court and justice services such as hiring more judges, improving digital systems, and streamlining processes vital to reducing backlogs and speed up the case resolutions. Through you, Madam Chair, could the Minister advise what this approximately 16 million increase to court and justice services expenses is allocated for? And I understand that the Justice Ministry has made significant strides in increasing the capacity for courtrooms with 18 appointments of justice and 3 appointments of justice of peace to the Alberta Court of Justice since June 2023. And can the Minister elaborate on how Budget 2025 will support this drive and improve access and improve Albertans' access to justice? And again, Minister, thank you for coming here. I really appreciate the Ministry's efforts that provides programs and services that ensures access to justice and supports the needs of Albertans involved in the justice system. Thank you, Madam Chair.
To the Minister.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair, and through you and to the honorable member, thank you for the ongoing and strong advocacy for your community. I am incredibly proud of this budget as it relates to justice. This is a year after year increase ever since I was appointed to this role. It is now $706.9 million, which is the highest budget for Alberta Justice in the history of our province. This is a $16.2 million increase over the previous year, and it is designed to expand and modernize and make sure that our justice system is responsive to the needs of Albertans. You asked for a breakdown. I'd be happy to give you one. $5.7 million will be allocated to the Legal Services Division to address multiple priorities, as we've talked about in this committee, the constitutional and legal challenges, supporting other ministries, and supporting the work and the needs of Albertans. $7.3 million increase to the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service. We'll establish a human trafficking unit, we'll hire more prosecutors, we'll support more prosecutors, and we certainly will be able to provide both electronic and human resources to our Crown Prosecution Service. Again, an increase in the budget to Safe Roads will help keep impaired drivers off our roads. We will be working with our Court and Justice Services to provide them with a significant increase so that they can continue to support the expansion of our courts through the hiring and retention of new people and providing for additional support services within our courts. You had mentioned, Madam Chair, the member mentioned the FTEs that Alberta Justice is receiving this year. That comes to 3,575. That represents a total FTE increase of 104, which represents not only the greatest number of FTEs that Alberta Justice has ever had, it also represents the largest FTE growth in the past 2 years now in a row. In all other, as compared to all other government departments, and that means that Alberta Justice has received the greatest increase of FTEs, or at least proportional to the existing FTEs of any other government department in Alberta. What this means is that this government is absolutely focused on the delivery of a strong justice system in this province, And I think that the number of FTEs and the support in our budget represents our commitment to making sure that Albertans can have faith and confidence in their justice system. 36 of those FTEs will be going to court and justice services. It'll expand, we'll use those FTEs to expand the family justice strategy, and we'll improve court interpretation services for our 3 courts to address the increased volumes for those who need those services. 19 FTEs will go to legal services to address multiple priorities, 16 in the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service, and 23 in strategy support and integrated initiatives to help deliver on mandate priorities and assist in improving the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner's workload. Finally, 10 will be allocated to administrative law programs to help support the Safe Roads program and the growth that we anticipate in that area. Lastly, in the short time that I have left, I do want to talk a little bit about what the honourable member mentioned in relation to the judicial appointments that we've seen in this province and the judicial officers. Thus far in my role, we've seen 18 judicial appointments. We've also seen the appointment of 3 JPs and many more to come. And we're excited about that because it represents, again, Alberta Justice's commitment to the delivery of a strong and effective justice system in this province. There was a question earlier about the applicants and the number of those that are applying. We certainly have a healthy number of people who are going through the process, but the members should know that the process again is independent. It requires interviews by judicial counsel.
Thank you so much, Minister, to the member.
Thank you. Madam Chair, just to follow up on the bail question, I stated that it's my understanding that Alberta Crown Prosecution Service performs monthly bail result analysis. So that's why I was asking if Minister could share some data that what percentage of bail hearings or bails are processed within the timeline set by the legislation. And the next question also relates to Crown prosecutors. What's the vacancy rate for the Crown Prosecution Service? And will the department be hiring more prosecutors in this budget 2025-26? With respect to line 4.3, there is an increase. So the question through you, Madam Chair, that with the increase in criminal prosecution's budget, what specific allocation is being made for specialized prosecution of technology-related crimes, which continue to increase across Alberta? So the question through you, Madam Chair, how many prosecutors will be specifically trained or have been trained or assigned to handle the cyber crimes? And next question is with respect to line 5.1. I noticed that the current budget is lower than the forecast. So can you please explain why the estimate is lower this year? And how will the digital transformation initiative specifically will improve access to justice for rural Albertans who may face geological and technological barriers to court services? And what measurable targets have you set for improvement in this area in budget 25-26? My next question is with respect to line 5.2, Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. This budget is slightly going up. There was some funds set aside in the capital budget as well for this office. So tell us how many employees are there, what is caseload like, and with respect to the new equipment at OCME, including CT scanner and toxicology machines, question I have is that what is the current backlog of death investigations? And what specific reduction in specific processing times Minister expects to achieve through this investment in new capital equipment and operating funds? I think I do have another time for another questions. I can talk about line 6.1, Alberta Human Rights. There's a slight increase. So question I have is, what is that increase for? And will there be any grants for human rights education, which for context, UCP government has cut from 1 million in 2019 to exactly 0. So question I have is that will any increase will go to human right grant. With respect to line 5.4, support for legal aid, we did talk about legal aid and how ALF reserves are being raided to backfill for the government cuts. So since 2024, the government has cut legal aid funding by 43 million. Has the ministry conducted any analysis on how this might impact court efficiency due to potential increase in self-represented litigants? And what measures is in place to ensure access to justice is maintained despite these reductions? So what I'm looking for here is the number of self-represented litigants in our court system, any increase or decrease in their numbers.
To the Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and appreciate the questions once again. Monthly bail data can be made available to the honourable member, but again, when I refer to the statements of the honourable member as anecdotal, I believe that those are supported by the statistics. The number of individuals that are processed within a 24 period of time remains the vast majority of individuals appearing before our criminal justice system, with often a fraction of 1% individuals who might exceed the 24-hour period. And there again are a number of reasons for why that might happen. Certainly happy to provide those if they're available to me, to the honourable member, but I can assure members of this committee that the vast majority of individuals certainly get processed within the 24-hour timeline. And so that is, again, a testament to how hard both the court system and our Crown prosecutors are working to ensure that happens. The member's question in relation to Crown prosecutor retention rates and or hiring, we have since 2019 hired an additional 65 prosecutors, trial prosecutors, bringing our number of trial Crown prosecutors to 392, and that's what Budget 2025 includes funding for. The vacancy rate for trial Crown prosecutors was 7.4%, and the question from the member was, what efforts are we making? We certainly are working hard to fully staff our Crown prosecutors' offices all across the province. I alluded to that earlier, Madam Chair, in my comments about the retention bonuses. We're working with our regional offices, our regional Crowns, and our chief Crowns to streamline processes and make sure that the hiring and retention process is supported in the best way possible. Further breakdown for the member in relation to specialized prosecutors, and what this means are those the prosecutors that are taking on special or specific areas, including areas like cybercrime and some of the things I had spoken about earlier in relation to human trafficking, extortion, and firearms violence. There are 59 dedicated prosecutors in the Specialized Prosecutions Unit. And those are the folks that are undertaking these specialized areas of the criminal justice system. There was a question from the honorable member, and I'm trying to get through all of them, so I'll speak quickly about this, about what intentions or hopes I'd like to see with respect to our digital initiatives in relation how they might help improve access to justice for rural Albertans. And I think that one of the primary considerations has always been to ensure that our justice digital programs and our transformations are intended specifically to ensure that Albertans in all four corners of our province can access their court systems. And we've seen that through the pandemic. We've seen, sometimes by way of necessity and not necessarily by choice, the need to help adopt new technologies to help allow for virtual meetings all across our province. We do that in our everyday lives, and our court system is moving along as quickly as possible with the technology available to allow Albertans to access their courts. I think it's also important to note that Albertans no longer have to deal with their traffic tickets or other court matters by physically traveling to the courthouse each and every time. And that was a complaint that we heard almost consistently. And so we've made it available to access the courts in multiple different ways to address your court matters by way of virtual means, while maintaining, again, I want to make this absolutely clear, Madam Chair, while maintaining the ability to go in person if you so wish. And we do have 72 locations all across our great province for Albertans who prefer to go in person. There was a question in relation to a line 5.1 and the decrease in funding. The decrease is essentially due, Madam Chair, to the return of restorative justice grants to their 2023 levels. We've also introduced a new grant program, the Community Justice Grants.
Thank you, Minister. Back over to the government side. I believe Member Lunty, you're up next.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair, and of course, thank you to the Minister and your staff. Some of the issues that you're working on are top of mind in my riding. When I talk to my constituents in Leduc Beaumont, they often talk about public safety and of course the administration of justice, and they understand how important it is. So I appreciate the chance to unpack some of that with you today. I'd like to sort of continue on a topic you've touched on a little bit, but I am interested in some of your thoughts further, and that is on trial delays. Maybe a little, I would like your commentary on federal involvement in some of these trial delays, and I will be referring to Outcome 2, Key Objective 2.1, and this is to improve Albertans' access to justice and create a sustainable justice system that utilizes court and prosecution resources efficiently and effectively. Through the chair, Minister, you've done a great job highlighting some of your key investments into the prosecution services, et cetera. So I would like to talk about how we can kind of see that visualizing and reducing some potential trial delays, and specifically look into how federal policies may be impacting the outcome that I just presented. I know earlier we did talk about federal overreach, so we certainly have seen that become a problem. But I would like to know more specifically about Budget 2025 is working to deal with the effects of policy decisions from Ottawa as it relates to trial delays. So through the chair to the Minister, given the federal government's catch and release approach to crime, how is the Minister working to ensure that serious and violent offenders are held accountable and not released back into the communities too quickly? So I'm certainly interested in the Minister's response to that. I had a constituent tell me that they think the only thing the federal government is efficient at is the releasing violent criminals into our communities. I would tend to agree with that analysis. It's certainly disappointing, and I'm interested in the Minister's thought on that. I also have, again, through the chair as always, I'd like to ask, so are there specific legislative or policy changes at the federal level that are contributing to trial delays? And I'd like to ask one more question through the chair on this particular topic. What is Alberta doing to push back against these policies that may be undermining justice for victims? So I'm certainly interested to hear from the minister on that. I think it's a really important topic. I would also like to switch my attention a little bit now to talk about the pre-charge assessment program. So I think I'm certainly interested to hear the minister's perspective on this. It is highlighted on page 113 of the business plan. And so as I understand it, pre-charge assessment plays a significant role in the administration of justice. It allows law enforcement and prosecutors to review the evidence of a case before deciding whether it should go to court or not. This, of course, helps reduce the number of cases going to court by filtering out weak cases, resolving minor offenses through other alternative measures, thereby increasing court efficiency by focusing court resources on more serious crimes. So I would like to ask about this pre-charge assessment system now. So I would like to go through the chair to the minister. Can the minister speak to what pre-charge assessment does and how it reduces the number of cases entering the courts? I'd like to have a second question through the chair. Can the minister tell this committee how much money is allocated as part of Budget 2025 for this important initiative? And through the chair, how many resources, prosecutors, and support staff will be available to support this program through 25-26? So we have heard from the minister on the importance of efficiency, and I do think that this is an important program that can help contribute to our overall justice system. And I certainly appreciate Minister's previous comments on working hard towards that goal, making sure that our financial resources are used effectively, and that victims and all Albertans are served by our justice system. So I would once again like to thank the minister and look forward to his responses. Thank you.
Go ahead, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the honourable member for the insightful comments and questions. I appreciate your advocacy in the Leduc-Beaumont area, and I'm certainly happy to answer some of those questions for you. For far too long, I think that Canada collectively, at least at the provincial level, all public safety ministers, all justice ministers have echoed the same message to our federal government. The ineffective bail legislation that was introduced in the way of Bill C-75 has completely eroded the public's confidence in our bail system, our catch and release system as it's commonly referred to. It's instructed our courts to find the least intrusive release conditions when contemplating what the court should do with an individual. The system made it easier for violent criminals to be released back into our communities. We've heard it time and time again that those that are charged with serious offenses always end up in the communities that they were charged in. I think this is highly inappropriate and problematic, and again, I want to stress to members of the committee that this is not we're not the lone voice here. We heard it from every single province in the country. The federal government tried to address some of those concerns by introducing Bill C-48, and that was brought into force on January 4th of 2024 with the intention of creating what they called a reverse onus, where an accused individual in some limited circumstances would need to demonstrate why he or she should receive bail rather than the opposite. We don't see any tangible impact at this point in time. I concede that, it's been about a year, a little over a year now, and maybe it needs more time for us to get those statistics, but we've not seen any tangible stats as of yet. I do want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing as a province, because I think that's important. Many of you will remember, many of the committee members will remember that in my role as Attorney General, one of the first things I did was I got rid of the triage program. This was a directive introduced under the Alberta NDP government that had provided guidelines to our prosecutors to triage certain cases. And the problem I had with that was that it was difficult to assess what cases were more important than others, what cases a prosecutor should move forward and try, and what cases should be dropped. To a family dealing with an issue in their neighborhood, prosecuting that case is very important. And to businesses that are impacted by cybercrime or theft or whatever it may be, that too is important. So assessing it on a sort of a triage basis, I think was the flawed way to go. We've canceled that program altogether. The other thing is we've introduced a bail practice protocol, which is really a guideline to our prosecutors, recommending that they identify some of the most serious and repeat offenders and take a hardline approach when it comes to bail. Take the approach that our prosecutors will stand their grounds. They will oppose bail where appropriate. They will recommend strong release conditions where appropriate. But again, the idea of making sure that our Crown prosecutors take a hardline approach when it comes to our repeat offenders is our part, doing our part in making sure that these individuals don't come back into the communities and create havoc once again. We still are, we're one piece of the puzzle, and certainly there are, bail reform is necessary in order for us to kind of complete that loop. But we're doing our part to make sure that criminals and those who are serious and repeat offenders don't end up back in our communities. I want to talk a little bit briefly about the Pre-Charge Assessment Office because I think that the idea is that pre-charge assessment prosecutors help ensure the charges that are entering the criminal justice system meet the standards for prosecution by reviewing the investigative file well before it gets to an assigned Crown and gets prepared for trial. Pre-charge assessment has proven to be very effective in reducing the number of files entering the court system by about 20% since its implementation. The Alberta Crown Prosecution Service has rolled out to the Pre-Charge Assessment Office to all RCMP detachments in Alberta.
Thank you, Ministers. The opposition?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some questions remaining, but I will just try to prioritize what I can ask in this last block. So through you, Madam Chair, the question is about line 5.3. Is Alberta Chief Firearm Office. So simple question, how many employees are there? There has been a turnover in senior leadership position lately. What positions are empty and what positions this budget will help to fill? Any particular reason for that turnover in senior leadership? Second, there is some amount from this budget that is spent, Madam Chair, on decommissioning the weapons. So what's the amount that is spent on decommissioning those weapons? That's one question. Second thing is that with those weapons that are decommissioned, there are some plaques created by this department, and some of those plaques have those decommissioned weapon fixed on it, and they have quotes from Premier and Minister himself. Minister can confirm or deny whether such plaques or quotes exist, but if so, how many such plaques with weapons have been created and what purposes they are used for, and how many of those plaques have been created so far, and how many this budget will support, how many more plaques this budget will support. So it's more about just Chief Firearm Office, and if needed, I can expand on these questions, but I'm sure that Minister understands what I'm talking about. The question is back to the human right education. As I said, that human right education grant was cut in 2019 to zero from $1 million. Will there be any grant for human right education in this budget? And third question is a follow-up. The question I asked with respect to the rule of law in key objective 1.1, where there were media reports that 3 ministers and Premier's former chief of staff called.
Please proceed, member.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The point of order is understanding order 23B. The member speaks to matters other than the question under discussion, call with the police chief, call with Marshal Smith, and call with other ministers is not within the scope of this estimate. And Madam Chair, the committee has convened for the purpose of considering the ministry's 25-26 budget, including estimates, fiscal plan, business plan. That the matter that has been raised by the member was raised before, and the minister did answer those questions at great length. I think we just have 10 minutes left here, and I will request honourable member to bring some important issues facing Albertans. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Right, please proceed, member.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say this is not a point of order. This is a matter of debate. The member himself seems unsure as to which point of order he's calling. First of all, he said it's relevance, and so he said it wasn't a relevant question, though he has not called a point of order at any point on this question earlier today. Then he moved to suggesting then it was a question of repetition. So what I would say is certainly if the member has not called a point of order before now, it is clearly something that is relevant. The minister has spoken to it, therefore it also remains relevant. So if I think it should be at the discretion of the member if he feels he has not received the answer he's seeking from the minister. Certainly, I think it's common practice to allow the latitude for members to continue to pursue and to ask a question. And certainly, as the member said, we have just a short amount of time left, and really, I think it's reasonable to leave that up to the member who's asking the questions to determine how he wishes to use the time that he has, and leave it to the minister to determine if he wishes to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, member. As I've stated in other estimate sessions, I encourage and welcome any points of order from either side of the table, and I'm always happy to pause and discuss that for a moment. At this particular time, I agree we'll proceed, and that the minister can choose whether or not he is going to answer. So please proceed, member.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the question relates to the minister stated ideals of making sure that the rule of law is upheld in this province, people's rights are upheld in this province, and I think that should be priority one for the Department of Justice. And the question is not about police conduct or operation that happened at the UFC. Question was that major concerns are raised when Premier's Chief of Staff or a cabinet minister, in this case including Minister of Justice, are reported to have called police chief.
So I'm going to just have you stop right there. That another point of order has been called.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, the members opposite were asking about which number. I'll be very specific on these three. This is a point of order 23H, I, and J. I'll start with I. Imputing false or unavowed motives to another member. This is probably the third or fourth time that the member opposite has done that. He's clearly just trying to politically grandstand, trying to score some cheap political points. Clearly, this is 23J. He's doing so in an attempt to cause disruption at the end of our time here at this estimates. And 23H. He's also made allegations against the member. I don't see any logs of notes or phone calls in their budget documents today. It's a point of order on 23H, I, and J. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Honourable member, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It appears Mr. Lunty is not familiar with the newspaper article that that Mr. Sabir is referring to, which indeed does contain the documents that he is specifically referring to. So this is not a question of a lack of evidence, Mr. Sabir has only referred to what has been directly mentioned in that article, for which there are documents that were FOIP'd from handwritten notes from the Calgary's chief of police. So Mr. Sabir is not impugning the motives of the minister because he is not alleging any particular motives. He is asking the minister about what his decisions and the reasons for these calls and these conversations might have been. Similarly, Mr. Sabir is not making any allegations. He is simply repeating what has been reported in a newspaper based on FOIP documents and handwritten notes of Calgary's chief of police. Now, whether it causes disorder, well, that is a decision of the government members, and certainly they have decided that they do wish to cause disorder, and in my view, waste the time of the committee in the limited time that we have left. I suppose they're free to make use of that time because it's only going to limit the amount of time they have left to speak with the minister. But in my view, this is a matter of debate.
Much. As I mentioned earlier, happy to hear from both sides of the table with regards to points of order. But you may have recalled that I did start to pipe up, Mr. Sabir, when you were speaking because you were veering into an area that is not related to estimates in any way. We're not here to review newspaper articles. We're here to review the budget estimates for the Department of Justice. And so if you all don't mind, I would like to continue on that path. We have very few minutes left. Remember, you have 1 minute and 9 seconds left. Please stick to the estimates, otherwise we will probably have another point of order called.
I think, Madam Chair, I was taking to the estimates, and I guess documents say that estimates, it's fair question to ask about what's stated in business plan, key objectives, ask about those things. And ministry's business plan starts with that rule of law is to be upheld. That's their priority one. Government undertakings need to be according to the rule of law. That's the first opening line of the business plan. And that's what question relates to, that when conduct of 3 ministers is in question, that calling police chief, that's offside rule of law. And the question is, how will minister make sure that rule of law is upheld and ministers don't call into the operational matters of Calgary Police? I will leave it at that. That's all my questions.
The rest of your time then, member?
Yes.
Okay, I guess we'll turn it over to the minister. Please proceed, Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Once again, thank you to the member for those questions. I'm happy to answer them. The initial question relates to the Alberta Chief Firearms Office budget increase. Those will support a total FTE complement of 70. That is the target that the Alberta Chief Firearms Office has established, and the goal is with the increase in funding that we achieve that target of 70 FTEs. The increased amounts will also address cost pressures in staffing and other operational expenses. The Chief Firearms Office has fees for leasing fees, employee-related expenses, other expenses certainly that they're incurring, and because of that, the increase in their budget is appropriate in my view. The budget 2025 and the corresponding increases that the member inquired about will help to process license applications. It'll work to address issues of transfer, authorizations to transport, and other administrative tasks. And it will also address the supports that we talked about earlier in the education of Albertans in firearm safety and best practices. The member asked a number of questions about I think it was decommissioning of weapons. I think the member is referring to the federal decision to buy back certain weapons, or at least make them unlawful. And again, my position on that remains clear. There is no methodology, there is no science, there is no evidence for or consistency in the way that the federal government has applied its rules in relation to the categorization of various firearms in this country. I will say this, it's important to keep in mind that the federal government has spent thus far in excess of $60 million on this quote-unquote buyback program, and has not purchased a single gun back. We've advocated for border supports. We've advocated for more funding to law enforcement. We've advocated for greater education. And we've advocated to the federal government to use the resources that they're wasting on this federal buyback program to help support the things that actually matter, making sure that people who are transporting and using guns illegally are targeted and addressed. So I think that's important. With respect to the Human Rights Fund, the member has asked about that, and I do apologize for not getting to it sooner. But there is currently a Human Rights Education and Multiculturalism Fund that operates under the authority of the Alberta Human Rights Act. It currently sits at $4.5 million, not zero, as the member has said repeatedly now. And there is a drawdown plan that the Alberta Human Rights Commission has in order to draw those funds down and use them for what the fund was intended to be used for. That includes a number of different things. That includes various projects to help improve navigator programs, conferences, grants, technological systems, and translation services, along with the corresponding staff needed to help deliver these programs under the Human Rights Education and Multiculturalism Fund. I think it's helpful to keep in mind that the Alberta Human Rights Commission does have a healthy fund in order to continue its education and multiculturalism projects, and they will do that as they see appropriate. The 5-year budget drawdown plan does mean that the $4.5 million will be drawn over that 5 years. The member has focused a great deal on a call to the Calgary police chief, but the member has made some relatively serious allegations that are not supported by the facts. The police chief did not complain. No one has complained. No one has raised any concerns, not even the police chief himself. And so,
Thank you so much, Minister. Back to the government side, Member Petrovic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just really quickly, through you, I'd like to turn my attention to a high-level overview of the impact of Budget 2025. And through you, Madam Chair, what priority is the Minister and his ministry looking forward to most in addressing in 2025-2026? And with that, I'll cede my time over to the Minister.
Minister?
well, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that open-ended question. Look, I'm tremendously proud of the work that Alberta Justice is doing. I know that there are many priorities, but some of them, the key ones for me, are certainly overseeing the development and work of our Justice Digital program. This is an initiative that will help connect Albertans all across our province. I want to continue to develop our Indigenous justice strategy because I think that, as the honourable member of the opposition mentioned, Indigenous overrepresentation is something that we must tackle. I'm very proud to see the construction and opening of the Red Deer Courthouse and the capital funding for the Calgary Court of Appeal. Again, institutional structures that will maintain and uphold the rule of law in our province. And finally, I'm very proud of all the work that this justice team is doing day in and day out to make sure that Albertans feel safe in their communities and that their interests within our court and justice services are upheld. I think we've got a remarkable team, and I just wanted to put that on the record that I'm incredibly humbled and proud by all the work they do. Thank you very much to all the members of this committee and all of those watching.
I apologize for the interruption, but I must advise the committee that the time allotted for consideration of the ministry's estimates has concluded. This concludes the consideration of the 2025-26 main estimates by the Standing Committee on Families and Communities. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.